Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Golf Unfiltered podcast. I am your co-host, not as always, as Adam likes to say, Nikki Dunagan. And speaking of Adam, he is not with me today because this week we will be celebrating International Women's Day, and is also going to kick off the start of Women's History Month. So I said, no boys allowed. And I'm bringing on some strong, powerful, kick-ass women with a history in the golf industry and a history with sports. And today we are so lucky to have with us a woman who is raising the bar and breaking that glass ceiling for women in sports. Her resume is just beyond impressive, including stints reporting with ESPN, covering college golf with the PGA Tour and PGA Tour U. Now she is the creative director calling all the shots with the Georgia Southern Athletics program. I'm so very honored to introduce to you one of my dear friends, Mrs. Whitney Haworth. How are you today? Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for hyping me up like that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm super pumped to get to talk to you today, even if through the computer screen. Obviously, you mentioned we're good friends, so I'd much rather it be in person, but I'll take what I can get.
Yes, yeah. And so a little fun fact for our GU audience, Whitney and I actually went to high school together very briefly. And every so often she likes to drop one of my really insanely embarrassing yearbook photos into our group chat. So I need to actually go find my yearbooks so that I can return the favor. I think they're in the basement. So, but she keeps those in a lock somewhere so that she can do that to me repeatedly. So I need to return the favor for you. But even though we didn't graduate together and we didn't speak for several years, though, it was ultimately golf that reconnected us. And I'm very thankful for that. And I do want to talk about some of your work in the college golf space, specifically Georgia Southern's golf team, who's doing pretty well right now. But before we dive into that, because it is International Women's Day this week, on March 8th, I want to get into your background a little bit and kind of what really drove you into the sports industry, because it is a very male-dominated industry. So, I'm curious kind of what gave you that spark? What made you want to jump into sports?
Yeah, absolutely. So honestly, my love for sports and wanting to work in this industry started back when probably in middle school. Realistically, though, I'll say high school once it was time to really figure out what I wanted to major in. I was just always that girl that loved being at sporting events, loved participating in sports. And, when we're 13, 14, 15, all those ages, I was always the girl that would sit with the boys and watch football games and really know what was going on. When my brother was in high school, he's 4 years older than I am, so I was in middle school at the time. I'm sitting there instead of running around with all the middle schoolers at their Friday night football games. I'm sitting in the stands with my parents watching the games. Then on Saturdays, I'm going to college football games. So once I was in high school, I just kind of knew, I was like, I think this is a area that I really want to pursue. And just the question was, how do I do that? So I molded kind of two of my passions, just obviously the love for sport, but then also knowing that my strength in the academic world was in writing and English and journalism, molded those together. So I was the editor of my newspaper staff in high school, and knew, maybe if I just do sports journalism, that would be the route to go. And, at that point in time growing up, you and I are watching sports, and the main, females that we see were Holly Rowe or Erin Andrews at the time. So, when everyone's in your ear saying, you're going to be the next Erin Andrews, basically they kind of wrote the script for me. And so I was just lucky enough that the school that I wanted to go to, the University of Tennessee, had an actual sports journalism track. So it was, the best of both worlds, that not only can I pursue what I want to major in, but I get to pursue it and major in it at the university that I grew up loving. And, I'm a diehard fan of.
Yeah, you've been a UT fan like your whole life, right?
Born and bred. There was really no other choice. So I'll take it.
Now, you talked about kind of Erin Andrews and Holly, and were there any like particular female role models that you sought out in pursuing that career in sports? I know you kind of watched Aaron, but were there any that you sought out as like mentors, or any that particularly guided you through your path?
Yeah, so I feel like there's a handful. Being at Tennessee, and then also I interned at the University of Florida for a year. Those, 4, 5, 6 years of my life provided me opportunities that I may not have been given. So I'm very lucky and fortunate for those times. So I was able to meet, Holly Rowe, and meet, Laura Rutledge and Dawn Davenport, and Courtney Lyle, who's now making it on the big screen with ESPN and the SEC network. She actually went to the University of Tennessee. Maria Taylor. Basically anybody and everybody that you see. As of late, I've had the opportunity to at least meet once and kind of pick their brains, and shadow some of them as well. So it's really great that they're willing to take the time to get to know students, and younger professionals, as we all got started in the industry. So I take a little bit from each of them, honestly, and then kind of mold it into who I want to be, and what my strengths are.
Was there a particular piece of advice that they gave you that really stuck out above any other, or was it just kind of watching the way that they worked and the way that they moved, that was what inspired you?
So one saying that's really stuck out to me and kept with me to this day is something that Maria Taylor said, and it was "be poised in the pocket." And it was a
Mm,
reference that, going back to football, is the quarterback is all has to be poised in the pocket no matter what's going on around him. And it's the same for a sideline reporter or play-by-play or color analyst, and you've got so much going on in a game, in a broadcast, but you've got to stay kind of where your feet are and focus on your role. And I think it's super, especially starting out. Your nerves are just everywhere, and you've got to realize, like, you're meant to be there. There's a seat for you at this table. So just take that deep breath, and know that just do your job and be yourself while doing it. So that's kind of like the second piece of advice, is just to be myself and not to compare yourself to others, which in this day and age is very, very difficult. But if you can just be yourself, then it's so much better of a place for your mental well-being, to be honest.
yeah, I completely agree with that, and I think that's incredible that you had so many powerful, like that. Those are some big names you dropped. So many powerful female role models that you could look up to and that you could watch moving forward. What you know let's say that there's girls out there who are now watching you, and now watching you come through your career. What would you say to them, as they're saying, I want to be the next Whitney, I want to be where she is, I want to do what she's doing? What advice would you give to them, outside of the poise in the pocket kind of piece that you just said there?
Yeah. So, in the end of it, from the very beginning is, and I do it honestly at a daily basis, being on at a campus at this point in time, is be willing to try anything and everything, and be willing to get your hands dirty. I think when we all start out, especially in the on camera broadcasting area of things, especially as females, we all want to just show up and be on camera and be a pretty
Mm,
face and smile, and then you finish your hits and you leave. And that's not how it works. You have to be able to learn how to run a camera, and so shoot and edit and run cables and put together equipment. I mean, daily I'm piecing together my camera that I take out and shoot things with. And I think that's, I don't want to say a lost art, but something that needs to be stressed early on, is just to try everything. Because when you can do all those different things and you can have all those different skill sets, that makes you a better candidate when you look ahead for other jobs. And not just on the technical side of things, but being able to also write your own scripts, come up with your own ideas, all of that. So then you can do a project from start to finish. I mean, helps you, like I said, exponentially.
do you think that this is might be going down a total rabbit hole here asking this question, but do you think that that platforms like TikTok and the fact that you can become kind of an instant star overnight for really not doing a whole lot, do you think that that has changed the way that this next generation views coming into this industry? You have people like and now I'm completely blanking on the girl's name. It's the TikTok star that hangs out with the Kardashians. Uh, I'm totally
I
blanking
couldn't
on her
even
name.
tell you because
This
I
shows
don't
my
like
age
TikTok.
here. This shows my age.
Yeah.
But she got to do red carpet reporting for a WWE event. It's never done any sort of ESPN reporting before. There are tons of other ESPN reporters that could have covered that event. Um, it, it, now I feel ridiculous not knowing her name. I'm gonna have to look this up. There's people who are probably listening to this right now screaming. It's not Addie something.
I was gonna say I have no idea, but I have heard of this person before. So to your point, and where I think where you're heading with this
Addison Rae.
is
Addison Rae. That's who it is.
yes, yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yes. You're
Yeah.
close.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it definitely has changed the landscape of this industry and the world that we live in. I mean, you and I look at where social media was when we were in high school and college. I mean, I tell people today that like Instagram barely existed when I was in college, and they look at me like I have three heads. I get on TikTok like once a week, maybe. And then I still don't know how it works. I couldn't make a TikTok to save my life. But that's why I'm able to also work with students and graduate assistants in my current role that then can excel in those areas. But it does make it more difficult, I would say, to kind of make it in this industry, because sometimes it's like you said, like someone like Addison Rae like goes on and she pops off on something one time and she gets all these opportunities. Whereas then you've got people that have busted their tails to get just one opportunity. So it's a different kind of adversity that we have to face. And unfortunately, it's not going anywhere. So it's just kind of learning how to manage it and handle it. And like I said, you're be who you are and be where your feet are, and know that, people are watching and appreciating what you're doing, whether it's on TikTok or YouTube or your, ESPN or ESPN Plus. Like there's all kinds of different outlets that we can succeed. So it doesn't really matter how you get there. It just get there wherever that place may be.
That's such a good be who you are and be where your feet are. I know I have such a hard time with that sometimes, because I'm so pro supporting women, all women, supporting women in everything. And then something like this comes up where it's, you have this girl who became popular on TikTok. They gave her this ESPN spot that I know that there are so many qualified reporters and people and other women who, like you said, were busting their tail, who know so much more about this sport, who could be covering it. And in my head, I'm going like, why did you give that to her? And I have such a hard balance between but I'm a woman. I should be supporting this woman for her victory. So let's support her victory. She's doing something great for her. But then there's another part of me that's like, but why can't I also kind of mourn for the ones who didn't get that too, And I think that comment of be where your feet are is kind of a good reminder of that, of you can support her for that victory, and then you can also support your friends who didn't get that job or that role or that whatever. Your feet are in that supporting role in this moment, and their feet are in the victory role. And I think that's a good way to look at it. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? I have a really hard time with that sometimes, of the women supporting
it's
women
not easy.
thing.
And saying that, the be where your feet are is something that I say that today, and tomorrow that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be potentially jealous of someone else.
Yeah.
It takes a lot, and it's really a maturity thing, to kind of realize that and know that the cliche saying of, everything happens for a reason, and when one door closes, another opens, and all those things. But I've lived it. I've had friends in this industry get jobs that I applied for that I really wanted, and yeah, I've cried my eyes out, and I've been angry and mad that they got it over me. But guess what? I'm getting opportunities over other people. So that's where you kind of have to remind yourself that you may be irritated, or you may see someone get something that you want, or you may think that, hey, I can do this better. But someone's also saying that about you. So it's
Mm.
kind of a vicious cycle, unfortunately. But like I said, you kind of just have to learn how to manage it and know that, again, like I said, in this day and age with social and digital areas, like, there's a way for all of us to be out there and to have success. And, maybe we're reaching 10 people and someone's reaching 10,000 or 10 million, but who cares? If you're doing what you love, then that's really all that matters.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I also want to talk kind of briefly about, last year Golf Digest published an article that was really good, that was about some of the toxic and negative comments that female reporters in the sports industry receive online. And specifically, they highlighted Kira and Amanda and Hallie. We kind of covered like we posted a reaction kind of essay to it on our website. But, you know, being in this industry for as long as you have, um, do you have an opinion on, I know we've talked about this kind of offline, but is there a right way to react to these comments? Is there a wrong way? What's been your approach to when that comes up?
So luckily, I have not had a lot of negative comments come my way, because I'm not on as big of a scale as someone like Kira or Amanda or Hallie. So maybe that's a good thing. Because I mean, I know I'm not perfect, but one of the hardest things is not reading comments and not responding to the trolls out there, because there are plenty of them. So I definitely feel for them. I mean, I've had the opportunity to talk with Kira and seek her advice. She and I are on the same age and have a lot in common. I love watching Amanda. She's been one of the greatest assets to CBS Sports. And, I've also had the opportunity to talk with Hallie and pick her brain. So again, like I said, like, they've earned their right to be where they are. Hallie's got obviously a massive golf background. Has a golf, like they all do.
Mhm.
But they've also studied the game to get where they are. And they're great on camera, regardless of what they're talking about. But you're just, unfortunately, we're in a day and age where being a female is hard, and you're going to get negative feedback no matter how great you are at your job. And we just have to work 10 times as hard and study harder. And even then, it's still not going to be enough for certain people. But those people, to me, like, I don't care. They don't matter.
Yeah,
I'm
their
sure there
opinion
will be
matters the least. Like,
yeah. Like, I'm sure there will be a day where someone says something that is really, really hurtful to me. And I'm sure it will bring me to tears, but I'll probably never meet that person. They probably have 12 followers on Twitter, if that. And so in the end, it's just like, you got to remember, they're just, keyboard, whatever, warriors or whatever they call them. So just don't read the comments. That's basically it. Makes it a whole lot easier. Easier said than done, but don't read the comments.
yeah, I completely agree. I take the same approach. I'm like you. I don't have many people commenting about me. I'm not on any platform really at all, other than this one. But when I do get any comments, they're easy to just, okay, I'm not going to respond. I think the harder part is, like, I cannot respond on the platform. I cannot respond on Twitter. I cannot respond on YouTube, but it's the internal response
Mm-hmm.
that's a little more difficult. It's how I'm handling it on the inside, like, I had somebody comment on one of my TikTok like a while ago and tell me that my eyebrows were too far apart. And like, I went the next day and had my eyebrows done because it ruined me like for that week. And, but I didn't respond to them. I didn't comment and say like, you're wrong. I didn't respond on the post, but internally I was like, oh, I should fix this, you know? And so it's that kind of internal response, I think, that takes a little more work, I think, than, you know, the external, yeah, no, I'm not going to give them the satisfaction of a response,
Mhm.
but, um, unfortunately, I now have given that person the satisfaction of knowing that I did go get my eyebrows done and that I did take their criticism, but yeah.
Well, they look great.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. um, well, I do want to get into your current role, and I want to start with like, you know, college golf a little bit. Um, you know, you've worked with the PGA Tour and, you know, the PGA Tour U. Now you're working with Georgia Southern Athletics, the entire athletic program, but specifically the golf team. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring up the golf team is you guys have a player who is participating actually this week in the Puerto Rican Open, but we're also going to see him in Augusta this year, right? Yes.
We are. Yes, we are.
That's exciting. Okay, so this is his first invite to Augusta. Yes. Let me see if I can pull up
Yes.
this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I saw this this tweet that he posted here, which first of all, I can't even imagine like getting this invite in the mail and seeing the like embossed logo and
Right. A
yeah.
dream come true, truly.
Yes, exactly. Wow, that's pretty impressive. So, so I want to talk a little bit about kind of the rest of your work and kind of what you're doing now, just so that, you know, other people who are kind of inspired to get into this industry know the really the depth of what you can do. You know, I
Mhm.
think like you were saying before, people see, you know, women in the sports industry and they think, oh, I can be Erin Andrews, and they think that's a very limited scope of what they can be. It's like I'm either on camera or that's it.
Mhm.
But I'd love for people to know what your role is now and what you're doing now, because I think it's first of all incredibly badass the fact that what you're doing and that you run this entire thing. But I think it's important for people to know that there are other outlets within working for sports that aren't just being Erin Andrews with a microphone on the field, you know.
Mhm.
Not that you don't
Yeah.
still do that too, but
Yeah. So I'll try to kind of put it all in a nutshell because I like to ramble on a lot. But basically, so I oversee all of Georgia Southern Athletics creative and digital strategy. So I oversee a team of creatives, so that's photographers, videographers, graphic designers, social media, you know, managers. Um, I work directly with our sports information department. I work directly with our ESPN Plus crew called Gata Productions. And so basically, obviously, we're always strategizing and creating the content and formulating the best ways to release it, whether it's on certain platforms or at certain times. So not, you know, no one day is the same. And that's honestly why I love being in this industry, is because I'm not coming to work every day and just sitting in front of an Excel sheet from 9 to 5. That would drive me insane. But like I said, you know, obviously overseeing all of those different areas, I do a little bit of everything. So my bread and butter in particular is shooting and editing video and also doing on-air stuff. I'm not a great graphic designer. I can work off a template. I'm not a great photographer. That's something that I'm working on. But I've got a good set of people, both full-time graduate assistants and students, that can help me out. And that's one of the most fun things too about my job, is seeing people, especially freshmen and sophomores, you know, and even juniors and seniors, getting involved at an early age, and being great at what they do. One of my best videographers right now is a sophomore, and he creates a lot of the hype videos that you see out on Georgia Southern Georgia Southern's platforms. But that's, a little of what I do, or at least kind of what I oversee. Like I said, every day is different. So like once I finish with you today, like I've got a couple different editing projects that I'll dive into. Earlier this morning, I helped someone with a video shoot. So it just, it changes day to day, but it keeps me on my toes. And, like you mentioned, obviously, kind of overseeing all of athletics, I get to dabble in a lot of different teams, some more than others. And one that I definitely get to work with most directly, especially now that we're in the spring season, are our men's and women's golf teams. Just, having a golf background myself makes me want to work with them, obviously. But we are very lucky right now that both teams are very successful. And like you mentioned, obviously, we've got Ben Carr on the team, who was the U.S. Amateur finalist this past summer, which got him the invitation to the Masters, and then the U.S. Open come this summer. So it's exciting to kind of follow his journey. He also just got into PGA Tour Canada, I think Q School, or something. How it's always complicated how all those steps go, but he keeps crushing it. And then our women, they're looking to defend their Sunbelt Conference championship title this spring rather. So it's fun to work with them, but it's also fun. I mean, we've got 17 teams here that I get to kind of touch one way or another, and see their success.
And your college football team this season had a huge season. Like, remember, let me put up this. Yeah, you guys had an amazing season, a big bowl game at the end of the year. I'm being from Georgia. Georgia Southern's a team that it's very easy to follow. I knew several people who went to Georgia Southern. So it's like you said, there's several athletic teams there. The baseball season is also starting up, college baseball.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I see you're wearing your orange and white today for, for Tennessee. But one of the things you kind of mentioned was talking about the strategy and kind of overseeing all of it. Is that something that, that you had to, you also mentioned getting a little bit better at the photography, and that your bread and butter is video, but you're getting a little better at photography, and that like you can do graphic design from a template, but, and you talked about earlier learning everything, that you can't just like walk in and, be like, I'm going to be the star of the show. Is that something that to new people coming in, is there kind of really one area that you would say, hey, make sure you focus on this? Or is it kind of learn everything, if you were wanting to get into a role like yours?
Yeah. So I think it's good to know a little bit about everything, but in the end, you're not going to be a pro at it all. Obviously, I'm not by any means, but I think when you're looking at like job descriptions, say there's 5, bullet points that a job wants you to have, like to be able to have 3 of those 5, maybe even 2 of those 5, is good. You can learn those other 2 or 3 when you get there. Or maybe you've got a little bit of experience, but you can get better, and you just haven't maybe had the resources or the network to help you get better. And so that's kind of what I think when you look at things like that is, if you at least are familiar with a couple different things, that's going to help you in the long run to at least be aware of, I can't make a graphic from scratch, but I know what goes into it. And so a true graphic designer, like they need time. I can't go to them 24 hours before I need something and say, hey, this is what I want it to look like, and know that, that they're going to get it to me in time. Some of them maybe can, but like I know the intricacies of certain things that it's like you've got to have some turnaround time. But there's obviously a lot goes into some of these roles. So like I said, you're not going to know everything, but to be at least aware of what it takes for certain people to do it really, really helps.
That's an extremely good point, is being aware of what it takes for your team members to help you do your job. And I think that's to your point of, if you only have 2 of the 5 skills that they're looking for on a resume, especially relating this all back to International Women's Day, when it comes to women applying to roles and women, looking at job description, and, women are still unfortunately considered a minority, in the workplace. And I have talked to so many friends of mine I know who will look at a job description and go, I would love to do this role. I would love to work in this job, but it says 3 years of experience, or it says 5 years of experience, and I only have 3. And I can't tell you how many times I have said, apply anyway. Like, or just like you're saying, oh, well, I can do 3 of these 5 things, but I don't know. It wants me to know how to use, Adobe Premiere, but I've only used iMovie. Apply anyway. Like, they're the same thing. Just tell them, like, I've used iMovie, just in the interview, tell them I've used iMovie. It's not that hard to learn the other, and I think
Exactly.
part of that comes with growing in your career. Part of that comes with, you will figure that out as you interview with more and more roles. But, are there other things like that as you've gone through your career that you have kind of figured out as well, that you would tell to other women as they're applying to jobs?
Yeah, I mean, basically what you said is just apply. Who cares what everything says? Like, obviously, if it's asking for 10 years, 10+ years of experience, and you only have 3, like, you're probably not going to get that job. But one day you will. And I think it's definitely tough coming right out of college, because so many jobs say, X amount of experience, and maybe that's just 2 to 3 years. But you're sitting there like, well, how am I ever going to get experience if someone doesn't take a chance? And so that's where you just have to apply and hope that someone does take a chance, because you never know what may stand out on your resume, that person is, that hiring manager is looking for. And maybe that, opens that door. Like I said, same thing with the experiences. You just have to kind of honestly ignore all of that. I mean, I don't have a master's, and I couldn't tell you how many jobs I've applied to in the past that says that a master's is required or preferred. So some jobs, absolutely, it's going to help. But, here I am. And I'm pretty sure this one in particular also probably asked for a master's, but I still got it. So I think there's a lot of buzzwords and things that highlight, job descriptions and applications right now that scare people away. But just don't let it. I mean, I know that sounds like pretty simple. But also, like you mentioned, obviously females are a minority. So we're already almost in one way have a leg up at certain positions, just because of that. So honestly, why not take it and use it to your advantage?
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. There's been so many times where I've looked at it, like, early in my career, I shied away for sure. But as I moved on in my career, there'd be roles I'd be like, screw it. Let's just see what happens, and send an application. And, there sometimes it's like you don't get the interview and you get a rejection email almost immediately. But then there's other times when it's like, hey, you're surprised, you get an interview, and then you find out in the interview that it turns out they were looking for someone with a little more knowledge on this feature than you thought. And so, but you don't know that until you get into the interview. And sometimes it turns out that, like, you get into the interview and you can wow them, and you know that you could do this job if you just get into the interview and you can show them your skills. So I think, I think that's the big takeaway, is apply anyway. Yeah. Well, so before we wrap all this up, I know we talked about this briefly in, your love of college football. We talked about how you are a diehard Vols fan. But I wanted to kind of play a little game, and kind of relate college football back into golf briefly, and do some word association, and just kind of, we will probably debate on this because you and I are fans of different college football teams.
Okay.
But if you had to match a college football team to each of the 4 majors, who would go where? So basically, like, when I say the name of one of the 4 majors, what would be the first college football team that comes to mind or that you associate with that major. So we'll start with the first one, the Masters.
All right. Can I have two?
Yeah. We can do two. Yeah, I was
All right.
looking at this earlier and thinking of two. Some of them I kind of dropped like uh a full category on. Yeah,
Okay. So Masters, it pains me to say, but I would say Alabama or Georgia.
I said the exact same, and I said UGA just because it's in Georgia,
Yep.
but then Alabama also because it's Southern and or you could just throw the whole SEC on it,
Yeah.
just
I'll take that
uh,
too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
My thought process is the Masters is in the same place every year.
Mm-hmm.
So we know what to expect. And as of late, it's been Alabama and Georgia in the college football playoff. Um, and as of the past 2 years, like you kind of to your point, Georgia's won it. So like, how can you almost not go with Georgia in that regard?
Mm.
But those would be the first two that just came to mind.
That's a good point. Yeah, keeping it in the same place, kind of. Alabama plays in the SEC championship in Atlanta in the same place every year, it seems like. So yeah, that's good. All right, the PGA championship.
Oh God, that one's tough.
I I took the cop out. I just said a Big Ten school. Like
Okay.
that's kind of the way my brain aligned it, but I don't know that I could align a specific one. Maybe Ohio State. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I kind of like that Big 10 or Big 12. You're moving locations. We've got lots of realignment going on as of late.
Hmm.
So it's almost like you just never know who's going to win it. Kind of like a dark horse. Well, they'll surprise us.
Yeah, and it's almost like I don't know. Maybe this is just how I feel about it. Anyway, I know other people rank the majors differently. It's almost the one that's like you, especially since they moved it to May, you kind of forget about it. It's like the one. It's like, oh yeah, we got to get through
The
this
one
one
that
to
got
get.
away.
Yeah, it's you gotta get through it to get to the U.S. Open in between the Masters and the U.S. Open. Not that it's not a great major, but it's like, let's get through it and get to the U.S. Open, which brings us to the U.S. Open.
I'm going to go with Georgia Southern because Ben Carr will be playing in the U.S. Open, and I didn't go with Georgia Southern for the Masters. So anybody that might be watching this, they may be upset that I didn't go that route. But again, U.S. Open changes location. Sometimes there's a surprise, but obviously Ben Carr, he is a Georgia boy. And so, who wouldn't love to see a surprise victory, an underdog, which Georgia Southern is typically looked at as. The underdog went out and beat Nebraska and was America's favorite that weekend. So, Ben Carr was America's favorite at the USAM. So honestly, it would really be fitting for him for Georgia Southern. I feel like to be referenced to the U.S. Open.
That is a much better answer than mine. I went such the cop out route. I went USC, which is like America's team, the US Open. That's the only thing I could think of for that. I couldn't really think of anything else. So that, yeah, your answer is way, way better than mine.
But it is ironic that you said USC because Georgia Southern's head coach Clay Helton did coach at USC for a number of years. So at least we had that vibe going
look at those
on
connections. Yeah.
So, but I'm Georgia
Yeah.
Southern all the way.
All right. So the Open.
Oh.
I went Notre Dame, but like
okay.
Or Harvard or like an Ivy League.
Okay. That is funny that you said Notre Dame because I was thinking of I can't think of his name, but one specific player came to mind. But I guess was it the Catholic route that you were thinking and like Catholic Irish?
Like I was thinking like because it's overseas, it's like old school, it's like very like the beginning of
classic,
golf.
traditional.
It's like like the castles and like St. Andrews and like Notre Dame's got like the old buildings, and Harvard has like, and Yale, they have like, they're established.
Yep. I like Notre Dame. That's a good one.
Yeah. I think
I'm with that one.
And then it's not a major, but
the players.
Just because it's coming up.
I mean, do we just go with the University of Florida for that one?
So yeah, I didn't say Florida, but I said Florida State or maybe Miami. Just they're kind of party schools. Not the players isn't really. It's not a party like the Waste Management, but it is. Yeah, okay, we can go with Florida too. That's fine. I guess because it's in Florida. It's got the island green.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Billy Horschel, I feel like, is a big advocate of the players. Obviously, he lives in Jackson, Ponte Vedra. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
that's up to you. You're the Florida fan.
There's been Gators. Yeah, there's been Gators at the tournament. Like, people have had the. Yeah. Okay, I could go with that. Okay, well, cool. All right. Well, thank you again so very much for being with us today. Where can people find you on social, or if you don't want people to find you specifically, where can they find Georgia Southern Athletics?
Well, they can find me at my handle at Whitney Haworth, but highly recommend going to follow Georgia Southern Athletics at GS Athletics on Twitter and Instagram. And basically then every sport is GS Athletics _ like their abbreviations. But, start at athletics and then you'll find everything else. And then kind of the same thing on Facebook, Georgia Southern Athletics, Georgia Southern Baseball, etc. So we would love the follows and the engagements as we look forward to, the spring season just really beginning. So.
Yep. And be sure to follow Ben Carr as he makes his debut in Augusta in only a few short weeks. Actually, it's not that far away. Yeah,
it will be here before we know it.
I know. All right. Well,
cue the theme song now.
Yes, I know. Oh, it's gonna be chills already. All right. Well, thank you again so very much for being with us today, and thank you all for listening. We will be back again next week, and make sure you're to follow us on social at Golf Unfiltered. And feel free to send us any comments, questions, or concerns. Actually, send them Adam's way, because that's probably better. You can send them to adam@golfunfiltered.com. And we will see you again next week. Thanks.
Thank you.